Welcome to my channel and welcome to another tragic, shocking story. This time a high-profile case from the US. When Molly McAfee met Adam Buchanan, he was already divorced and had a son Nolan from a previous relationship. However, it didn't matter to her, as she fell in love and tried to build a life with Adam without rejecting her stepson. She wanted everyone to be happy. The couple moved in together and soon after, their son Gavin was born. People who knew them said they were a happy and loving family of 4. Adam had a construction company and earned well enough to provide a comfortable life for the whole family. The family bought a vacation property in El Dorado County, in Greenwood, California. The property required renovation and financial input, but they were still very happy. Unfortunately, over time, Molly and Adam's relationship began to deteriorate. They slept separately, argued very often, and quite seriously. Soon, unfortunately, a tragedy occurred. But did it have any connection with the couple's problems? On September 13, 2015, at 10 a.m., firefighters from El Dorado County, California, rushed to the Buchanan family's vacation home after receiving news of a large fire. It took a long time to bring the flames under control. They also had to be careful that the fire did not spread to the vacation homes and forest in the area. Fortunately, everything was under control and the flames were extinguished. Unfortunately, Molly and Adam's house burned to the ground. However, this was just the beginning of the shocking events, as the fire chief suddenly smelled a strange odor. And when rescuers entered the burned property, they came across burned human bodies. It turned out that the victims were 37-year-old Molly McAfee, 38-year-old Adam, and their 8-year-old son Gavin. Looking at what destruction the fire had done, once they saw their bodies, it was obvious they were dead. But did they die from the fire? After examining their bodies, doctors discovered gunshot wounds in all 3 victims. Then, a post-mortem confirmed that all 3 victims had been shot before the fire started. And officials believe that the killer had set the house on fire to confuse the trail. Then questions also arose as to what had happened. Who wanted this family dead? Why did they die? At first, the police focused their investigation on Adam's matters. And they wondered if someone held a grudge against him serious enough to murder the family. They also looked into Molly's life to determine if she had any enemies. Nevertheless, when the investigation revealed nothing, the officers directed their attention elsewhere. And they soon realized that the couple's problems were serious enough to lead to murder. They could have led to an extended suicide. That one of them killed first a family members and then himself. For example, this could have been done by Adam. He killed Molly and Gavin, set fire to the house, and then shot himself. Anyway, Molly's mother said that sometimes they argued so hard that she was afraid of whether they would kill each other. So it might actually have all made sense. But was that really the case? Well, not really, because the evidence of the crime and the angle of the gunshot wounds ruled out these theories. And police had no choice but to question Adam's 16-year-old son Nolan Buchanan. Since he was the only one who was all right, they went to their family home, which was located in the town of Benicia, California. There they found Nolan. When he was interviewed for the first time, he claimed that his dad, Molly, and Gavin had driven a Dodge pickup truck to the vacation home to renovate it. And he stayed at their home in California. He also claimed that their neighbor, who lived next door to their vacation home, was growing marijuana in the garden and had an argument with his dad about it one day. The police checked it out because the quarrel, although unlikely, but could have been a pretext for revenge. However, this was quickly ruled out. After a closer look at the case and the lives of the family, it came to light that the construction company was in trouble. Buchanan Construction was having a difficult time financially, and some employees were unfortunately fired. Sometimes it happens that former employees take revenge, but in this case it also turned out to be a false lead. So it was necessary to keep looking. On the weekend after the crime, the services had a break, because in the cleanup of the area near the Buchanan Construction Company, they were helped by students. And it was there that Molly's purse was found, containing Adam's ID card and a gun. This forced investigators to obtain a search warrant for the family business. By reviewing financial records, they were able to confirm that the company was in debt and failing. So a number of possibilities then arose regarding the investigation. Financial troubles, dissatisfied employees, all of this, of course, needed to be investigated and found out what really happened. Who was behind the family's murder? Investigators knew that the family drove to the vacation home on Friday, September 11th, and according to the only surviving family member, 16-year-old Adam, they drove there without him in a Dodge pickup truck. However, detectives soon obtained CCTV evidence that revealed this was not the case. The footage showed that Adam had hooked up the trailer with restoration materials to a Ford F-150, not the vehicle Nolan had mentioned. Moreover, the camera showed that Adam drove this Ford to a cottage in El Dorado County, on the way stopping at a Taco Bell, a fast food bar. There he ordered 4 drinks, indicating that Nolan was in the car with them. Those cups were later found cast in the ruins of the house. So there were many indications that Nolan was with his family at the vacation home after all. But he denied it all the time. He insisted that he was not there. That he did not go to El Dorado County with his family. And on the day of the murder he went on a date with his girlfriend. And it's interesting he paid for it with his father's credit card, which he gave him. Here, too, there was some inconsistency, because Adam used this very card to pay at the Taco Bell for a drink. Therefore, he could not have left it to Nolan. This was another of his lies. So how did this card end up in his hands? Determined to find out the truth, the police reviewed hours of surveillance footage. Well, and they determined that the next transaction took place on Saturday, September 12th. That is, the day after the family arrived at the vacation home. At that time, $40 was withdrawn from the ATM. It was located about 30 minutes away from the Buchanan family's vacation home. Surveillance footage confirmed that it was Adam and Molly who were there. Adam withdrew the cash, and Molly accompanied him. Subsequent video footage showed their Ford F-150 car driving toward the cottage around 2:30 a.m. on the morning of the fire. Later footage showed that the same car was coming back, heading toward Benicia to be exact, where the family's main house was located. And this was at 3:30 in the morning. What's more, on the morning of Sunday, September 13th, Adam's ATM card was used at 3 premises in Benicia. At Starbucks, at McDonald's, and at a gas station. It was not used by either Adam or Molly, as this had already happened on the day of the fire, at another location. So it wouldn't have been possible, they couldn't have done it. Besides, investigators confirmed that Adam only had one ATM card on him, so since he wasn't the one who used it, someone else must have done it. In addition, Nolan's fingerprints were discovered on the weapon I mentioned earlier. At this point, there was already plenty of evidence that he was behind the murders. And this evidence was solid enough for a trial, so the police wasted no time and arrested Nolan. It was determined that Nolan arrived at the summer house with his family on September 11th in a Ford F-150. They spent Saturday working at the cabin, and later that evening Molly and Adam went to their favorite bar, the Valencia Club in Penryn, about a 30-minute drive from the cabin. And while Adam, along with Molly, were at the bar, it was at home that the first tragedy occurred. That's when Nolan shot his brother Gavin. He then waited for the other two to return. And they returned around 2:30 on Sunday morning. This was recorded by the cameras. On the other hand, from 3:33 on the CCTV footage shows the same car heading towards Benicia. So who was driving the vehicle? According to what is known, the first time during the first sighting around 2:30 a.m., Adam and Molly were in the car. On the other hand, in the second footage at 3:33 a.m., only Nolan was in the same vehicle. Thus, it is established that he killed Molly and father during that hour. After which he poured gasoline over the bodies, set the house on fire and left. He drove away. At the trial, prosecutors presented evidence indicating that the 16-year-old had planned the murder even before his family left. He had been browsing the internet for night vision devices, because there was no electricity in that summer house of theirs yet. So it was dark, and thanks to the night vision device he could see everything. Thanks to this he could also hide. In addition, he was looking for information on how to open the safe, how to set the house on fire. So this did not happen on the spur of the moment. It was just all planned. And what was the motive? Why did he decide to carry out these murders? Well, as is well known, he was 16 years old, so a lot of time would pass before he would be where his father was. He would have to work a little harder to have, for example, his own business, house, and so on. So he came up with the idea that if he got rid of his father, then his company would automatically get into his hands. He would own it. Anyway, already after the murders he already bragged to his relatives that the company belonged to him. In his head he had a vision of how to improve it. He felt he would take better care of it than his father, who had driven the company into bankruptcy. Nolan couldn't look at it. He couldn't stand what a failure his father had become. So for him, murder was supposed to solve all his problems and set him up for the rest of his life. That way he would have a house, cars, a business, just like that, without waiting for it, without effort. And when he actually murdered, he believed that this plan would succeed. This was confirmed by his later behavior, partying with his friends, spending money. It is known that shortly after the murders, when he took the car and drove home, he spent the next night with his girlfriend. And when he got up in the morning, he stated that it was the best day of his life. He was completely unconcerned about what he had done. What punishment awaits him for this? He didn't think about the consequences, as he hadn't considered them. Taken to court, Nolan pleaded not guilty to the charges against him and maintained that he was innocent. In court, however, Nolan's grandfather testified and revealed that his grandson had admitted that he had killed his brother. He allegedly said that, "I did it. I killed Gavin so that the boy wouldn't have to grow up in a chaotic family like me." So he admitted to murdering his brother, but later in court he denied everything. He even tried to reverse the narrative by claiming that it was his father who shot his family. He first killed Molly and his brother, and then pointed the gun in his direction. He defended himself, then the gun went off and hit his father. But later, based on bullet holes in the skull of 8-year-old Gavin, for instance, this testimony was deemed impossible. So this theory of his, this defense of his, was not accepted by the jury. And eventually Nolan was found guilty. Nolan was convicted of the murders on June 13, 2018. He was sentenced to 150 years, with a possibility of parole in 25 years. Nolan is listed as being incarcerated at Valley State Prison in Chowchilla, in California. And that's the end of this shocking story. Goodbye.